the USC Trojans. 5-0 during the limited regular season against Pac-12 competition, then take a loss to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. They opt not to play in a bowl game, but so much to be excited about. Keaton Slovis, these wide receivers look like they're going to be absolutely tremendous. The defense seemed to take a little bit of a step forward as we saw that coaching staff shaken up just a little bit. Now, my burning question, and of course, we want to see where everyone's head is at on the Trojans, a team that should have expectations of competing for a Pac-12 championship. And if you want to get back on that narcotic, we can talk about them as a sleeper for the playoff. But they got to run the ball. They got to have better offensive line play. Otherwise, we're talking about a team that is going to be really exciting when it's clicking. But in those games against the best teams, when it's close, when there's not much margin for error, I think if they can't run the ball and if they can't be really solid, and those two things, running the ball and offensive line, run together for me, then there's going to be a limit of what this ceiling can be. So the offensive line takes a step forward, then yeah, the ceiling is a playoff. If not, then your ceiling is probably Pac-12 South title. We'll get into predictions and stuff much later on in the offseason. But what are we looking at when we look at this USC team for 2021?
As we mentioned, and we talked about a lot on the North show, it's hard to know what to take away from the 2020 season in the Pac-12, just considering the circumstances and how short it was. But based on what we saw from USC, I think you hit a lot of things on the head there, Chip. The defense under Todd Orlando took a big step forward last year in a limited sample compared to what we'd seen in recent years, as far as getting more pressure on opposing quarterbacks, forcing turnovers, all that kind of stuff. Offensively, I was kind of just not super impressed by the Trojans last year, especially with like the kind of hype we had with Graham Harrell going into another year as the offensive coordinator. I don't know if Keaton Slovis was like 100% last season. I remember watching the Trojans play a few times last year and thinking to myself, he didn't look 100%. And obviously, when it comes to like an air raid offense, there's always been a little bit of a dink and dunk aspect to it. But that passing attack last year was very much dink and dunk. There weren't a lot of deep shots. And I think that really did hurt their impact of running the ball, because I felt like defenses didn't feel the need to defend anything past 15 yards. So they were able to stay up near the line of scrimmage, which took away the running game. And you mentioned, the running game last year, they finished 9th in the Pac-12 in rushing success rate. They weren't very good at running the ball, period. So I do think that this is a team that's obviously talent-wise, recruiting-wise, it is still freaking USC. And it is still like the kind of team you look at and say, all right, this is a team that should win the South. And if the offense does take those kind of steps forward, I think it will win the South. And then it becomes a legit contender to not only win the Pac-12, but reach the playoff. But I think you're right that I need to see Keaton Slovis look better than he looked last year. I need to see that offense become more explosive than it was last year and take more deep shots. And I need to see a running game kind of develop that's not just something that, oh crap, we haven't run the ball in a while, we better run it just to keep them honest.
I'm pretty high on this team for this year. I agree with most of Tom's points, although I don't know that they have to be able to run the ball better to win the Pac-12, right? I think the Pac-12 is winnable doing what they were doing. I mean, they were pretty close to winning it, last year. They threw the ball more than just about anybody in the country. So like that's a pretty big deal, right? I mean, they if you're not that great at running the ball, don't try. Just do what you are good at. And it's kind of like baseball, right? Some of these teams are now realizing, oh, your fastball sucks. Guess what? Throw 80% sliders. And it's actually really effective, even against the best hitters in the world. Like, do what you do well. And they did throw the ball, very well. I think they did a nice job of addressing the safety and defensive tackle positions in the portal. We'll see how those guys turn out, but they at least identified those needs. They have not, however, gone and got a transfer offensive tackle, which get in line. Everybody in the country basically wants one of those. And when you get one, I mean, it's like Oklahoma got one and we're not even sure if he's good or if he's going to start. Right. So like those guys are typically not out there. If you need offensive tackle help, if you need like high level offensive tackle help, probably not going to come. To Tom's point about the arm strength though, they did interview Slovis, and I forgot who had the quotes. It was probably the Peristyle, our USC site. He basically mentioned that like he didn't feel 100% last year, and he worked with Tom House in the offseason to try to use his legs more, feels a little bit healthier. The reports out of practice so far are that he does look like he's got a little more zip. So like that's encouraging. I agree with you. When watching him last year, I was like, I don't know, man. Like I thought he had more spark to it.
It's like, when did he become the soft tossing lefty out of the bullpen all of a sudden?
Yeah, exactly. I think defensively, they're going to be really, really good in the back end. I think, safety and corner, they're pretty set. To me, I think it does come down to offensive line if they want to take that next step going from, good to great, but they're already pretty good, I think.
I think Slovis is incredibly talented. I mean, he's shown flashes of brilliance where I think next year we could be talking about him lead up to the draft as a first round pick. I think he's that good. I mentioned, talking about the run game, you wonder if they were dead last in the Pac-12. They were only team in the Pac-12 didn't rush for at least 100 yards a game. They averaged 97. It did seem like they bailed on it. They've got to bring more balance. The offensive line trying to fill in at tackle for one of their better players was Vera Tucker, who's going to be a draft pick here coming up. Receiver they've lost, but remember the name Brew McCoy, the transfer guy from USC Texas back to USC, incredibly talented. He needs to take big steps, but you kind of look at it and you're like, all right, who else in the South has as much talent as this team? And you don't see a whole lot. I'll be curious to see what Graham Harrell does, though. Does he try to, kind of what Bud was saying, does he try to run the football more, or does he just bail on it and say, all right, we're going to chuck it around because we've got a great quarterback? But I like the defense. So I think Slovis is not a bad option for a Heisman candidate. Like, we saw a movement last year to get somebody else that wasn't a quarterback to win it. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a movement for some West Coast love this year. And if Slovis is the guy, he's going to get the majority of the love and recognition for it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Slovis is in New York when everything is all said and done. And I think USC is that sleeper team to make the playoff. The Pac-12, they've got to get some love here sooner or later. Their schedule sets up more favorably than Oregon's because they don't play Ohio State. But, man, they better watch out for that San Jose State team the first game of the year. So, but I think this team has got all the workings to be a Pac-12 champion and make a run.
That is Danny's San Jose State Spartans.
That's right.
Your squad right there.
What is my guy back? He is back, isn't he?
Yeah.
Starkle. He's back for another year. Year 17.
A question for you, Bud, because we know the kind of impact that Kayvon Thibodeau had for Oregon a few years ago as a freshman, and now he's not there this spring, but he's going to be getting there this summer, this fall. Corey Foreman, is he somebody that could he's the number one player in the class? Is he somebody that's going to just show up on campus right away and already be one of the most impactful defenders in the conference?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I didn't get to see him in person a lot because of the shutdown, and you guys know how hard it was to travel. And I thought CBS was pretty good about letting us travel compared to some companies. And I still didn't get to see him a lot in person. But the photos, the film, he's going against high quality competition. He's destroying it. I mean, that's what the guys who make early impacts look like in high school. So yeah, I think he's somebody. Now maybe because he didn't early enroll, he doesn't make an instant impact in game one, but he's certainly somebody I think can give you a couple hundred impactful snaps. I also I was a little bit worried about them at receiver because you lose Amon-Ra St. Brown and you lose Tyler Vaughns, and both those guys are probably going to be draft picks. And then I was looking at this and reading some practice reports on the peristyle. Josh Jackson has moved to corner, and Josh Jackson's a really good athlete. So if they feel good enough about the receiver room that they're cool to move him to corner, I feel good about the receiver room because you kind of got to wait a second. You're going to let Josh Jackson go play corner despite the fact you lost two NFL receivers. So I think we should probably feel pretty good about that. My greater worry is lines of scrimmage with tackle replacing Vera Tucker. And then also, I mean, you got to replace Tefele and what's his name? Marlon on the defensive interior. But I think they'll do an okay job of that.
Drake London's a stud.
Yeah.
Brew McCoy, high ceiling, caught 2 touchdowns last year. Gary Bryant Jr., stud. I feel good about that wide receiver room. And then you pair it with the scheme, right? And that's how you see the success sort of coming to be. Hey,
what's going to be fascinating real quick is if they go 9-3, Helton's done. Or are they going to hang on and one more run? Because this feels like his year, right? It should all come together. And if it doesn't, I mean, every single year he's on the hot seat. It feels like it. So it's kind of a make or break season, I think, for Helton.
So on that, we thought he was going to be on the hot seat last time, right? prior to last year. And then I think everybody in the industry kind of figured out, ooh, like the word kind of leaked out. His contract is like not fireable. I mean, kind of like, Dino Babers. Oh, he went 2-10. He ain't going anywhere, right? Like they don't have that kind of buyout money, or at least they didn't the last time they really wanted to consider buying him out. Remember, they're all like, oh, well, James Franklin go to USC stuff. It turned out a lot of that was, guys, this ain't happening because USC can't afford to fire him. I'm interested to see how much money he actually has left on his deal.